Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Impacted Family and Friends Resources, the Kacie Palm Project for Youth Suicide Prevention, and Bristol County Coalition for Suicide Prevention's um, beginning of a really important date for me and for Tracy in particular is that October 26th is National Make a Difference Day, and we're doing this session right now with Dr. Suyemoto to get this kicked off. The tone is about compassionate advocacy, and I think that's something that is so global and universal and needed across the board. And at that point, I'm going to stop. Pada is going to step forward, introduce herself. Pada, thank you for joining us, and we'll catch up soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Anne Marie. I really appreciate being here today on Annual Make a Difference Day. My talk will be about a personal reflection on recovery and activism. Um, I am currently work for two organizations, and I'm going to talk about them more in depth, but I work for the Mass Coalition for Suicide Prevention as their Associate Director of Equity. And I work for NAAPIEN, which is the National Asian American and Pacific Islander Mental Health Association, as their Executive Director. I'm going to start by reading a piece of spoken word about my journey to being able to work, and then I'll talk more about that. So this is a spoken word piece called Second Chances. When I lost everything, including myself, I thought my life was over again. I lay alone in my bed, hid under the weight of the covers, unable to move, unable to do, unable. I cried every day for 10 years. 10 years, literally. I was lost in my sadness. I was lost in my darkness. I was lost in my pain. I was grieving my losses. I am not sure how I endured, how I persevered to breathe each breath each day, how I managed to survive despite my oppressive mental illness, despite my desire to fade into nothingness. I am not sure how I learned to live with myself, how I learned to accept depression as a companion on this journey, how I learned to be compassionate with my fragileness. I learned quickly that depression is not for the faint of heart. For 20 years, I clawed my way out of darkness. And as I began to heal, I started to peek out from under the blankets, peek out into the world. But there was really no place for me as a person who struggles with mental illness, no place for me as an academic without an institution, no place for me to share my pain and my knowledge, no place for all of me until until I found work at the intersection of my pain and my understanding, until I found NAAPIEN, until I found suicide prevention work. When I say I'm a mental health activist, they look at me puzzled. Isn't it depressing, they ask? Isn't it difficult? Isn't it troubling? Yes, and I know this landscape. I know the deep ravines, the rolling hills, the sudden cliffs. I have traveled these places and survived. I have something to share. I have a story of recovery and hope, and as trite as that may sound, it's true. I am a testament to second chances, a testament to resilience. I should not be here, but I am. I am here and I will not be ignored. I will not be silenced. I will not be shoved into your boxes. I am committed to be whole. I am committed to use my voice in the service of equity, in the service of those who are unable to speak, in the service of solidarity and community. We are all connected. My well being is inextricably interwoven with yours, sharing the air we breathe, sharing the sacred land on which we walk, sharing this moment together. So I have was on disability for about 15 years for mental health issues. I am a person who deals with major depression, complex PTSD, and ADHD. And I spent a number of years really down and out and not able, like I said in the poem. Um, and then as I started to heal, I also started to volunteer and do work to make meaning. I couldn't get paid, I was on disability. And so, but I really felt like I needed to make meaning from my own experience. So I began to speak out. I spoke for Families Depression Awareness. I spoke I was interviewed by Psychology Today in 2009, and I knew at that point that I was coming out as an activist, that I was not going to be able to go back. And that was a decision I intentionally made. And then some of the places I was volunteering became workplaces. So I was hired by the MCSP, the Mass Coalition for Suicide Prevention, and their website is mcspnow.com. Again, that's mcspnow.com. And then I also started working for NAAPIMA, which is the National Asian American Pacific Islander Mental Health Association, first as their director of training, and then later as the executive director. And their website is naapima.org, NAAPIMHA.org. So at the MCSP, I am the Associate Director of Equity, and I'm proud to say that I think we are the only, I'm proud to say that we are one of the only coalitions that have a director, Associate Director of Equity. And it's sad to say that, because that means that other places aren't putting the same amount of attention to that effort. One of the things that we have done is develop the Widening the Lens Toolkit, which is a toolkit that helps organizations move their organization along the continuum of equity to become more equitable. And that's available free and downloadable at the MCSP website under the Equity tab. But I want to spend more time talking about NAAPIMA today, because I feel like one of the things that is interesting about me being the leader of NAAPIMA is I'm a person who leads with lived experience. So my experience as a attempt survivor of suicide, as a person who lives with chronic mental illness, and as an impacted family person, having taken care of my mother and my daughter who have mental health concerns. So I come to this work, all of it actually, with this lived experience. But at NAAPIMA, our organization is a nonprofit whose mission is to promote and refine mental health and the well-being of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander individuals and communities in the United States through training programs, policy and advocacy, and centering those with lived experience. We have 4 big buckets of what we do. We have culturally informed mental health trainings, community-based mental health programs, community-driven policy and advocacy, and community crisis supports and response. And I want to talk about each of these buckets a little bit in my kind of the things that I've worked on and experienced, and how they're important to the work in general in mental health. So we do culturally informed mental health trainings. And we have a program called Achieving Whole Health, Body, Mind, Spirit, which is very much in line with all the work the IFF and Voice at the Table does. The Achieving Whole Health program looks at mental health through the lens of body, mind, spirit, a holistic lens. And I first was introduced to this program in 2015 when I was part of a coalition of Boston people. 3 of us went to New Mexico to learn about this program from a SAMHSA-based convening. SAMHSA runs the NED, which is the National Network to Eliminate Disparities, which is a whole program to try to eliminate disparities in mental health. And Achieving Whole Health is one of the evidence-informed programs that is part of the NED. So I went to this convening, to this training in New Mexico in 2015 in order to learn about the program and deliver it in Massachusetts, where I live. Now, the program also works to help people develop health goals of their own. So it's really about understanding how body, mind, spirit works, and then developing a health goal based on what your needs are in particular. And I learned this program, and it's very powerful. It's not complicated per se, but it's very powerful because it allows us to really think about how mental health is affected, how by our body, mind, spirit. And it's not just in our heads. It's Western medicine tends to remove, like, to separate all these different sections, and in Asian philosophies and understanding, they're really all integrated. And so this integrates these body, mind, spirit to talk about how it all affects our mental health, and then develop a health goal. I delivered this program to a teen center, to young women in a teen center in Massachusetts, and it was very successful. The teens really resonated with this as well, and it was interesting because one of the cohorts of teens, one of the individuals, decided to create a goal around getting more sleep, because, as people know, teenagers, routinely don't get enough sleep. So anyway, this young woman wanted to get more sleep, and in the process of having her goal and tracking it, we track it for 8 weeks, and we meet as a group to support people with their health goals. And what happened was, she went from understanding that the sleep issue was really related to the phone issue, and spending too much time on her phone during homework periods. So so that was really interesting for her, and she started a whole practice of using the phone less and less, and moving it further and further away from her reach, and she started getting more sleep. It was a very nice correlation. But she also, what was interesting for her is just the knowledge that it wasn't sleep exactly, but it was this other aspect of her life. So anyway, so that was a really powerful experience for her, and I think a really good learning for all of us. Another culturally informed training we do is mental health first aid, which is put on by the National Council, but we weave in the cultural concerns of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islanders. If people can look up mental health first aid. It's a training that allows people to learn how to approach people who are struggling, from beginning of struggling to crisis situations. And we are providing, NAAPIEN has gotten a grant to provide these trainings free for our community members. If you are Asian American, Native Hawaiian, or Pacific Islander and are interested in these trainings or interested in them for your organization, please look at napima.org. We also do community-based mental health programs. We have a youth program called Friends Do Make a Difference, which addresses youth, high school youth, to be able to have conversations about mental health with their peers. But another program we have is called the National Asian American Pacific Islander Empowerment Network, or NAAPIEN. And NAAPIEN is an initiative of NAPIMA, which is a network of people with lived experience, either as an attempt survivor, a loss survivor, an impacted family or friend, or someone who contends with mental health concerns, but maybe is not suicidal. So we have this network of over 180 individuals who identify as Asian American, Native Hawaiian, or Pacific Islander, who also identify as having lived experience. And this network is very, very important to me, because as an Asian American woman who has lived experience, I have not found places that I can be whole. In the Asian American community, the issues of mental health is very stigmatized. We don't talk about it in our community, and that's part of my job, is to start talking about it in community. But another piece is that if you have lived experience, where do you go for support? If you're Asian American, Native Hawaiian, or Pacific Islander, where do you go support? Where you're not being judged, where you're not, where your cultural background is at least acknowledged and present. Because most of the services that are available for people are not culturally specific and not culturally aware. So we need to make sure that we have spaces where we can be comfortable. In fact, NAPIMA put on a summit last year that was focused on youth and people with lived experience. And I must say, it was so powerful to have 30, 35 people with lived experience, all who identify as Asian American, Native Hawaiian, or Pacific Islander, in a room together, because it's so often that we're isolated. We can't talk about our lived experience without feeling shame because we're being stigmatized, etc. So this is a place to break that stigma and break that shame and really be connected with each other. So the NAAPIEN network does a lot of different things. We have listening sessions where we have a topic that we share about. We've done things on eating disorders, on identity, on LGBTQ2S plus identity in the Asian American community. We've done a lot of different listening sessions. We have community sessions where we are building community, just getting to know each other, that kind of thing. And we have a network meeting coming up on the 27th, October 27th, at 3 p.m. Eastern, I believe. And you can find information about that on our website. In addition, you may need to sign up for the network. There's a tab that says sign up for NAAPIEN. If you are a person who is Asian American, Native Hawaiian, or Pacific Islander and have lived experience of any sort, you are invited to sign up for our NAAPIEN network. And I think having spaces where people with lived experience can share without having to explain their lived experience all the time is really important, particularly in communities where it is stigmatized and we don't talk about it. So that's important. And Impacted Family and Friends provide spaces for people with specific, a specific identity to really, talk about the experience of what it means to be an impacted family member. And that's important as well, in terms of networks. Now at NAAPIEN, we also do community driven policy and advocacy. And we have a whole initiative called Vote for Wellness, which we've been supporting people who are working on campaigns and that kind of thing. We've been holding sessions about compassionate conversations. During this time, it can be very contentious for families, particularly if the political views differ within a family. And so we have developed a handout, which is actually on our website as well, in our Vote for Wellness tab on the website, that looks at how to have these conversations, how to have these compassionate conversations. Because, in Asian American communities, Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander communities, family is so important. And, a lot of times we will silence ourselves because to maintain the integrity of the family. But this is, some tips on how to have conversations, things like acknowledging the places where we are have the same values, for instance. Like, so if you're having a compassionate conversation with someone who has misinformation or disagrees with you or has disinformation, and you're trying to figure out how to share, acknowledging the fact that, say, you both care about family and that's a value that you both share. And then talking about how that may differ, depending on what policy you're supporting or, what issue you're dealing with. So we have this idea that compassionate conversations in our families and with our friends and our community is really important. And, that those conversations need to happen and also don't need to rip the fabric of relationships apart. Excuse me. We also have community crisis supports and response. So, when the Maui fires happened, we provided some psychological first aid for first responders. We were part of that group, a group of people that got trained in psychological first aid and held space for the first responders in the Maui fires. When we did various resource providing for different Monterey Park shooting, those kinds of things. So we try to really keep abreast of the the ways that our community is infected by different crises, and try to respond to support the mental health of people. Most recently, we in New Jersey, a young woman was murdered by the police who was having a mental health crisis after calling 988, and then police were deployed, and she ended up dying, and the community, of course, was torn apart and sad and terrified. And so we held a healing circle for the community online, and a place where people could share their struggles, a place where people could share their feelings and how they were dealing with these issues. And these kinds of community responses and supports is really important, because people are suffering, and often suffering in silence. And so being able to bring communities together to be able to talk about what's going on is really important, and something that NAAPIEN does. And so if you wanted to get involved with NAAPIEN or MCSP, NAAPIEN is, again, NAAPIEN.org. And there's opportunities to get involved with the NAAPIEN network. And if you get on that email list, you will get all the information about all of our activities. We also have over 100 community partners. So if you're part of an organization and you'd like to connect with us, that is, another way to work with us. We offer those mental health first aid trainings. We actually offer adult and youth mental health first aid trainings. Youth mental health first aid trainings are for adults serving youth. And we offer those. So we have trainings that are available. And we can also tailor a training to an organization that serves AANHPI populations, as well. So contact us at NAAPIEN. And my email is pata@naapien.org. So it's pretty easy to remember. So if you want to contact me personally, that would be the way to get connected with me. MCSP has a number of opportunities too. If you're in Massachusetts, we have our general membership meetings, which are open to the public, and are talk about suicide, what the MCSP is doing. We tend to have presentations and that kind of thing. Recently we had a presentation on the difference between 988, 211, and behavioral health helplines. MCSP also has an Alliance for Equity, which is a body that deals with equity in suicide prevention directly, and also weighs in on things MCSP is doing. So, for instance, the Alliance for Equity reviewed the state strategic plan for issues of equity, obviously helped with the development of the toolkit, and also we deal with anything that comes through MCSP. We can review it, that kind of thing. We also are talking about what we can do from that space specifically. So that's the Alliance for Equity. If you want to, MCSP has a newsletter, and NAAPIEN has a newsletter. So if you want those, please get in touch with us as well. So there are many opportunities to get involved, and I think that it's so important that we all take action. Compassionate advocacy, as Anne Marie was talking about, or certainly has talked to me about a lot, and that as we go forward, we think about what it means to do compassionate advocacy, and to be open to other experiences and other perspectives. I think one of the things, since my work has primarily been around equity and around communities that are underserved or or invisible. Asian American communities are often invisible. And so I think that, when we think about how we reach out, what we do, that we need to try to think inclusively, and the ways we can create belonging for everyone. We know that belonging is a protective factor for suicide, and so if we can create spaces where people feel like they belong, either in our organizations with voice at the table. I mean, and finding a place where you feel like you belong is really important. And just I see, the emergency text and call line 988, the suicide crisis and lifeline is showing, and I just encourage people, if they need help, to reach out and try to get the help that you need. It is, it can be a challenge sometimes to get help. I know that from my own experience and from helping my daughter get help. But the first step is realizing that you need it and reaching out. So I encourage people to do that if you need help. And with that, I appreciate the time here, and I appreciate you listening to me. If you want to reach me, please, pata@napima.org. Reach out, and I look forward to more conversations in this space and other spaces, and hope you all have a great day. Thank you.